I could. All right. So I wanted to introduce our chair of the day, Bill Drennan III. Bill is president and CEO of WTD Resources, LLC, to introduce our speaker, John Hennessy. Bill?
Thank you, Rick. And thanks for the pleasure to introduce our speaker, given my love to race cars, that a Porsche that I have. Our speaker today is John Hennessy, and let me just tell you a little bit about him before he stands up here. He was born with a passion for speed, fast, and fun cars. John's early success racing at venues such as the Pike Peaks Hill Climb, the Silver State Classic, and the Bonneville Salt Flats, where he set a world speed record back in that point, stoked the competitive fires and convinced him that his passion for racing and fast cars could be turned into a successful business venture. Today, Hennessy is one of the largest independent automotive tuners in the world, and he has built more than 10,000 specialty vehicles. That's a lot of cars, 10,000 specialty vehicles, including mid-engine supercars, super trucks, modern muscle cars with 1,000+ horsepower, and probably everything in between. He sells these vehicles around the world, and his vision to be the top automotive tuner in the U.S. has become a reality for this man. He has many clients, including Jay Leno, Steven Tyler, Tony Hawk, and Tim Duncan, and many other stars of Hollywood and sports figures. So let's join in together, and along with his wife Hope and their 5 children, they live here in Houston. Let's give John a warm welcome to our Houston Rotary Club.
All right, thank you guys for braving the crazy weather to come out and hear my car stories. I really appreciate the opportunity. I got a chance to talk to the Rotary Club maybe 3-4 years ago, and it's kind of neat to meet new and interesting folks, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. And one quick nugget for you guys: when you get your picture taken, don't wear baggy jeans like I did. So I kind of want to talk about a couple different things today, and I've got my timer on my phone so I don't ramble on too bad. But really 2 things I thought that I could share with y'all that I think is kind of relevant for my story. The first is Houston has been very, very good to me, my family. Kind of reminds me of the character on Saturday Night Live. Baseball has been very good to me, so Houston has been very good to me, and I'll share with you kind of how the Rotary ties that story. And I also want to talk about building a brand, which I'll just kind of start off telling a little bit of my story kind of from birth. I was born in Kansas City. I lived in Kansas City till I was, 21, and I got the bug for cars probably from my dad. I'm told that when I was little and he had an old Pontiac GTO, and when he would go fast, I would just want to shift the gears, and so thanks, Dad, for that. It's kind of worked out pretty well. So kind of grew up in just kind of a normal, well, not normal, kind of dysfunctional, but we won't talk about that today. We put the fun in dysfunction, as we say in our family. But anyway, grew up in Kansas City, just, was interested in cars. My first car was a 1969 Oldsmobile 442 convertible that I bought with my own money, and started modifying it as soon as I got it. And so fast forward to, 1982, I was in my second year of engineering at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, and I kind of ran out of money. I didn't have such a great semester. And so I thought, well, maybe they didn't call it gap years back then, but I thought, well, maybe I'll just take a little time off. And I like photography, and I was entrepreneurial, another gift that I got from my parents. So I thought, well, maybe I'll start a photography business and be a party pit guy and take pictures. I did that in college for a while. And so that business didn't really work out, and my dad was living in Houston at the time. He was an insurance adjuster, and I think Hurricane Alicia from 1983 went through Kima, and so he was working down here, and he came up to Kansas City to visit, and I was kind of like, well, I'm not doing school, and I don't have any money, and I'm not really sure what I want to do. He says, why don't you come down to Texas? There's a lot of construction jobs, and with the rebuilding from the hurricane. So I moved to Houston in late '83. I had an aunt and uncle that lived here. My dad lived here, and I didn't know a soul. I came here with not a nickel in my pocket. And so for those few years back in the mid '80s, I was did construction work a little bit here and there, and would try some different entrepreneurial ideas. And I kind of quickly clued into the fact that Houston, the mindset among Houstonians, the people that I would meet, was kind of a can-do attitude. And gosh, if you want to start a business, you can be successful here. I never heard that growing up in Kansas City. In the late '80s, I met a gentleman who was in one of the local Rotary clubs, and he says, hey, look, there's an opportunity. You know a little bit about construction. At that time, there was environmental cleanup where buildings would have asbestos in them. And so he said, he encouraged me, he says, you should start a company to go do that. And I did that. Nobody told me I couldn't. So I started it and kind of learned as I went along and made a little bit of money. And so that was kind of my first interaction with anybody from Rotary. I just thought these guys were like very can-do and encouraging and positive. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. As you interact with others, you might come across some young 20-something version of me or a young lady, and by your actions and by your encouragement, you may help somebody, get further ahead than they might have otherwise been on their own, just listening to teachers and parents, good or bad. So I think there's a really positive impact that you guys make every day, every week, and I'm living proof of that. So anyway, I had my asbestos business, made a little bit of money at that, and I thought, okay, I want to get a car, and I want to race it. And I thought, okay, well, my name's not Andretti or Unser, and I'm not going to be able to go to the Indy 500 or anything like that, but I thought, I want to go race at Pikes Peak. I read about a guy in a car magazine in Motor Trend who bought a car and went and just put a roll cage in it, and he raced it up Pikes Peak. And so I thought, I want to do the same thing. And so I bought a Mitsubishi 3000 GT in 1991, and I put a roll cage in it, and I went and raced at Pikes Peak. I raced at the Bonneville Salt Flats. I didn't win anything at Pikes Peak, but I didn't crash, so I consider that a win. And I was the only person there crazy enough to drive the car there and drive it home. So I thought that's what all the racers did. I thought you just load up your wheels and tires and your floor jack and your helmet and race suit and just drove there and drove home. And I get there and I'm like, God, these guys have crews and trucks and trailers. And I'm like, okay, that's all right. I don't have the money for that. I don't really want the complication of that. But so I raced at Bonneville that year and set a class record at Bonneville, which was kind of cool. And then I also did a couple races in Nevada called the Silver State Classic, where they still run it. It's probably this weekend, but the state of Nevada will close down a 90-mile section of state highway. And depending on your qualifications and how much safety equipment your car has, the unlimited cars can go out there and go as fast as they can for 90 miles. And so I turned up at that race. The second time I did it, my average speed was 167 miles an hour for 90 miles, so it took me 33 minutes to go 90 miles. And anyway, I'm having a lot of fun with this stuff, and I was engaged at the time and getting ready to get married, and so we're buying a house, and I'm racing, and I bought a race car, and I learned the first rule of racing, and that is, if you want to make a small fortune in racing, you start with a larger fortune. And as I'm doing all this racing, and I'm not really working as much in my asbestos abatement business, I'm just kind of watching my bank balance kind of dwindling down. I told my fiance, soon-to-be wife, I said, I really love tinkering with cars and racing cars, and I don't really know if there's an industry for this, but I know there's a couple of guys that have been successful modifying cars for other people. Carroll Shelby is probably the most famous, and then there's a guy in Germany who's a Porsche guy, Alois Roof. And those were guys that I'd read about in car magazines and kind of looked up to and idolized. I thought, well, maybe if I can do that myself. So in 1981, we started Hennessy Performance, and ever since then, it's been a 28-year overnight success story. We've had a lot of ups and downs, mostly ups. I'll talk about one of the downs here in a minute. But through that process, again, kind of transitioning into my story about the brand, we had been in business for about, 7, 8 years. And back in the 90s, back kind of really before the internet and YouTube and social media, kind of the big prize in the automotive business was if you got like covered in a big magazine like Motor Trend, Car and Driver, Road and Track. And we started getting coverage because we built interesting vehicles and they needed content to write about. And once we started having our cars featured on the covers of some of those magazines, and we've been on the covers of dozens of magazines over the years, people started recognizing who we were. And there was no plan for that. I didn't even know what a brand was. I remember hearing the term among the corporate OEMs, the manufacturers, they would have a brand manager. I'm like, what's a brand manager? And I just woke up one day and I thought, well, gosh, people now kind of know who we are by no plan or design. I wonder if we're a brand. And so I thought, well, let's just keep building cool cars for our customers. And if we get a chance to share that with the public, then that people will know who we are. And we didn't have any real budget to advertise. And so I thought, well, what's better than advertising? We don't have the money to advertise anyway, but if we can get somebody else that drives our car and has a good experience with it and they can share that with other people, that seems like a good marketing plan. So that's what we did back in the 90s into the 2000s. And then kind of transitioning into the 2000s, once YouTube came along, I thought, well, gosh, it'd be cool. Not everybody can come to our shop and see what we do. We built a lot of Dodge Vipers back in those days. That was kind of the vehicle that we had gotten quite a bit of notoriety, especially through the media. And so not everybody can come go for a ride with me in a car, but gosh, if we can shoot a video and put it on YouTube and people can get an idea of what it's all about, maybe that would help our business, which it did. And so we started a YouTube channel whenever YouTube started back in the mid-2000s, maybe 2007. And I think to date we're about 350,000 subscribers, and we get about 2 to 4 million YouTube minute views per month. So that's one of our biggest forms of just sharing with people what we do. And so fast forward to 2013, had an opportunity to meet our Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst at the time, and we were at a restaurant. We had mutual friends here in Houston, and he said, "John, tell me about what you do." And so I kind of gave him a little short spiel about modifying cars. And I said, "David, by the way, you're building this new highway out near Austin, SH State Highway 130. And I said, I'll make a deal with you. If the state will let me test a couple of cars on that highway, I'll make sure that YouTube, social media, not only everybody in the United States, but every car person in the world will see a video of one of our cars going really, really fast on that road." And he was all about it. And I thought, I know you're the Lieutenant Governor, I know you're like a big deal, but I'm sure like the fun police or the safety people are gonna like totally shoot it down. And so we built a car. We had a new 2014 Corvette, and our pro driver that we had selected to drive the car got busy, couldn't do it. And I thought, well, it's been a while since I've gotten behind the wheel and gone like 200 something miles an hour, but I'll do it. And so, no, I'm sorry, this is 2012. So 2012, I did drive the cars. We had two cars that we ran. A Cadillac went 221 miles an hour, and a Camaro went 204 miles an hour. And when we did that, David came out, was really cool, was very supportive of it. I think it did a lot to help promote that road for the state. And I got to meet another guy who was the chairman of TxDOT at the time, a guy named Ted Houghton, who's still a friend, lives in El Paso, super guy. And Ted said, "Hey, by the way, we're going to open this new highway near Katy called the Grand Parkway." I said, "I know right where that is. I live 5 minutes from there." And he says, "We'll have you come back." And so in late 2013, we brought a Corvette to that road, and I'll share a quick video with you guys and see what you think about this. You can watch the rest of it on YouTube if you like.
Did the
It's
pass
me.
work at that speed?
Sorry?
Did Easy Pass work?
Easy tag.
Easy Pass.
It did. As a matter of fact, the kind of funny side note on that, when we got to SH130 in 2012, we were like the like the tech stop PR firm was telling us like, well, you know, like there's these safety like advocates or like really like might cause us some headaches with the media and stuff. And I was kind of aware of that, and I was kind of thinking they might cancel this whole deal. And then so we got out there, true to Dewhurst's word, we were out there getting ready to run, and an engineer came up and says, "Hey, do you mind if we put this little toll tag thing in the window?" I'm like, "Aha! Now we have a legitimate reason to be out here." And so we did the same thing with, so at Transport that runs all the toll systems for the state, they came out to the toll road on Grand Parkway when we ran in 13, and yeah, it works. And they actually have sensors there. They know your speed too. They could mail you a ticket if they wanted to, but I think that would probably dissuade people from driving on the highway. So I was very impressed that, but yeah, the camera works at 200 miles an hour. It actually works at 221. We saw that in our Cadillac in 2012. And so anyway, that was something that we had increasingly learned about our business, that, you know, some of these, you can call them stunts. I mean, we're having fun. We're testing our cars. You know, safety is a big, important part of what we do, and we're grateful for the state and to let us go out and do those validations. And as we all know, the state of Texas, TxDOT built some pretty awesome roads, so it was kind of cool to validate that. But I just wanted to kind of share part of that. Again, that was those type of things has kind of helped us build our brand kind of initially unknowingly, but it's something that's really worked and helped grow our business. And in 2014, we had an opportunity to start working with the folks from Shell Pennzoil. They had developed a new motor oil that's actually derived. They take natural gas and they distill it, so they actually make a new, they call it gas to liquid. So they'll take natural gas and they'll make motor oil out of it, very pure synthetic oil. They're Pennzoil synthetic, and so they said, hey, look, we're looking for somebody to work with that can kind of help tell the story of what we're doing with our new synthetic oils, the platinum Pennzoil. And I said, great. I'm like, we've kind of been using Mobil 1. I'm like, you know, I'm sure it's really good, but like, who else uses it? And they said, well, we've got this guy named Roger Penske who's like won 500 races and won the Indy 500 more than anybody else. And I said, okay, the captain's running your oil. That's all I need to know. It's good enough for me. And so it kind of began kind of a cool relationship with the folks at Shell Pennzoil, which has allowed us to do a lot of new cool stuff that I'll share with you. But kind of not too soon after we ran the Corvette down the toll road, we had another car called the Venom Gt, which we were trying to beat. The world top speed record at that time was owned by the guys at Bugatti, which are based in France, but they're owned by Volkswagen. So it's essentially it's a division of Volkswagen in Germany. And so they had a record at 267 miles an hour. And we had a car that we built called the Venom Gt, which we produced about a dozen cars from 2010 through 2015. And if you like, you can go ahead and play that video real quick.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
So funny story about that. So we set a record down on where they used to land the space shuttle down at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, NASA. And we had gone there a month before, and the weather was rainy. By the time we got our car out on the runway, we weren't able to make a full pass. And so I went to the NASA guys. I'm like, can we come back tomorrow? They're like, well, no, the runway's rented for like the next month. You'll have to come back in like a month. And I'm like, okay, well, we come back, we'll rent it for a couple of days, and that way we can have a provision for weather. And I'll never forget, and I wanted to be like an astronaut when I was a kid. So like Neil Armstrong was like a hero of mine. And so while that didn't work out, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm here at NASA, like where the astronauts like risked their lives to do like really incredible things and did really hard things because they knew that they would be better engineers and we would have lots of great technology and cool things as a result of their hard work and risk. And it all started with President Kennedy kind of laying down that vision, like we're going to the moon before the end of the 60s. And then they made that come true. It was cool to see that 50th anniversary this year. But as I was leaving NASA, my wife called me and she said, "Are you disappointed?" I'm like, "No, I think we're going to come back here and nail it. I just feel like really blessed to be here amongst like just Grissom and the great people." The astronauts that did those cool things that inspired me. So I was telling my kids a story after church, like the week following. My wife was out of town, and they said, "Same thing, Dad, are you disappointed?" I'm like, "No, we're going to go back and do it." I said, I recall President Kennedy giving like a speech where he talked about like we do these things not because they're easy, because they're hard. And I found that video on YouTube. I sent it to our team that was prepping the car. And I said, "Hey, look, while you're doing your work on the car, watch this video. Maybe it'll mean something to you." As we're getting ready to do this, I saw our videographer just so appropriately, kind of voice that over at the beginning of the video. So anyway, fast forwarding till now, that was in 2014. In 2017, one of our competitors, a Swedish company called Hennessy, beat our record. They ran a two-way average of 277.9 miles per hour. And we thought, well, that's great. We'd held the record for almost 4 years. We thought, in order for it to be relevant, somebody else needs to like take it for a while. And we had just introduced around that same time a new car that we've been working on for a while called the Hennessy Venom M5. And you see it there in the picture with me. That's actually a display model. That just is our exterior design. It wasn't a running car, and so we've been working hard the last couple of years, again with the folks at Shell Pennzoil, have been a huge supporter for that program. And we expect to have our first running car here within the next 3 or 4 months. And so, and interestingly enough, the folks from Bugatti, so when they set their record in 2010, they ran two-way direction, which is really the right way of doing it. That way it cancels out wind. The day that we ran 270, we wanted to run the opposite direction, but NASA was testing their Morpheus spacecraft, like an autonomous space vehicle, on the opposite end of the runway that we were going to run on. They're like, "You can run again the same direction, but you can't run that way because we got a $30 million spaceship down there." And so we didn't get to run. We thought, well, no big deal. Nobody's really going to care if we want to run one way or two ways, except for the people at Bugatti. And they started telling the media, well, the Hennessy guy said run both ways. As a matter of fact, I was at a major auto show, and the CEO of Bugatti, who's a friend, we get along, but we jab each other from time to time. And as we shook hands and he walked away, he turns around, looks at me, and says, this is like 3 years ago, he says, "By the way, next time run both directions." So, a couple weeks ago, Bugatti goes out and takes their new Chiron Super Sport, and they go 304 miles an hour. Huge, huge number. They have their own private test track in Germany. But the problem is, they only ran in one direction. Sorry, guys. So, you should have ran both ways, because we're coming for your number. And so, hopefully, we'll see what the Venom M5 does sometime in the next 6 to 12 months. What else can I talk about? One last thing I'll just wrap up with. Again, Houston's been not just good to me and my family and our business, it's been unbelievably good. So, and I'm sure many of you were all probably in some way or another affected by Hurricane Harvey 2 years ago. Our home out on Kingston Boulevard out towards Katy was completely flooded. We had the Barker Reservoir. There was 7 feet of water in our street, and we had probably 2 feet of water in the house, and it completely wiped out our house. And gosh, but we've been so unbelievably blessed at that time. I mean, it's crazy how many friends, family, people from church, people that we knew at Shell were like, hey, I've got a boat, I can bring a boat over to take you to your house. It's just unbelievable that again, that talk initially about that Houston spirit, can-do attitude. It's so real to me and my family, and our business has been blessed incredibly since then. We're adding another 15,000 square feet onto our workshop. You see these crazy fast cars that we build. Right now, 2/3 of the vehicles we build are trucks and SUVs. So a lot of Ford Raptors, Lincoln Navigators, Cadillac Escalades. Why would somebody want to take a big SUV and make it faster? I don't know, but it keeps us really busy. So we're very grateful for it, and they're a lot of fun to drive. A couple of other just little tidbits about our business, and then I'll share kind of one final video with you guys that nobody's outside of our company has seen. We started a school about 10 years ago to teach people how to modify cars called Tuner School. So if you know of a young person that is interested in cars and trying to figure it out, it's kind of like all these hard lessons that I've learned over 28 years. I thought, gosh, we can compress all that down into a semester, and somebody can kind of learn the basics. It's a good way for them to get in the industry. And we've had, gosh, hundreds of students come through the program in the last 10 years. More than half of the workshop in our production facility are graduates from Tuner School. So it does a pretty cool thing. And I will end with our final video. And again, this is I'll set it up before you see it. This is a teaser video that we'll probably put out on social media next week with our new engine that we built for the Venom M5. And again, our goal was to be the first to break 300 miles an hour. Bugatti did it one way. We still feel like there's an opportunity to do it in two directions. But I'm always kind of trying to protect my downside. So I'm thinking, well, what if somebody, our competitors, beats us to 300? And Bugatti kind of did it, but not really. I thought, well, what's 500 kilometers? 500 kilometers per hour is 310.7 miles per hour. We actually designed our car to run that number. Now, whether we can do it or not, we're certainly going to try. So Bugatti left a lot of meat on the bone. They should have gone out there and really run both ways and tried to hit 500K, but the fact that they didn't, hey, thanks guys. And one little tidbit that you'll see at the end of the video, our hashtag, the name for our new motor is Fury. So if you've ever seen the movie Fury, where Brad Pitt and these American heroes back during World War II were fighting the Germans, that's kind of the tie-in with that, with the Bugatti guys, because they're all German. They're our friends, but we like to motivate ourselves a little bit. So go ahead and play the video and I'll be done. Thank you.
John, thank you for this very entertaining and informative meeting. And I also want to thank Brian Troy for President of the program. We have something for you, John, as our speaker today. And just so you know, I've already asked him to join our club. I'm sure Neil would be, I think they would think I would be remiss if I didn't. I've been trying to recruit him in Rotary. He'll admit it.
We're empty nesters now, so we've gone from a no to a maybe.
Yeah, I've only been doing this for 3 years, but it'd be good. It'd be good. John, can we get an invitation to come to your place and take a little tour? Because I think they would really
absolutely. So my daughter Emma Royce, she helps with our events. So if y'all would like to come as a group, I think that would be wonderful. If you wanted to come as smaller groups, we can do that as well. We typically do tours on Friday afternoons. But feel free to come get a business card from Emma, and she can help you with that. And certainly, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Yes, sir.
I got one comment first, just so you know. The first two guys on the moon were Rotarians. One of them was a member of my club, the Space Center Club.
Awesome.
So you really do need to be in Rotary, so you can be a kid of that.
All right.
Second question is, whenever I drive down I-10 and I look over and I see your building and I wonder what's in there, but I also see you got like a drag strip
Yes.
next to it. Now, can a knucklehead like me, can you get on that?
Well, if you guys come out, like if for an event, we'll do something at the track with y'all.
Like with our own car?
We can set that up. So yeah, and you have to race this guy right here. He's got some fast Porsches. So Lone Star Motorsports Park is a quarter-mile drag strip that we bought before we put our facility out there. We've gotten so busy in the last few years that we've stopped doing public events there. But I was telling one of the guys here while we were eating lunch that I think we may try to do a couple, 3 events a year, maybe one to benefit police officers and maybe something for veterans. So we may try to open up and do some charity events, not when it's summertime and it's hotter than blazes, but maybe something in the fall and something in the spring. But yeah, we would love to have you guys come out, maybe as a group, and we can run a few cars down the track if you like. Yes, sir. Ma'am. Excuse me.
My name is Cheryl Seidner, and I'm in the car business. My heart is still racing from those videos.
Yeah.
I love going fast, and I started with BMW and learned to drive Skip Barber Racing School, but up here, not down in Florida.
Nice.
So my question to you is, I know Billy Bray, I know Mr. Drennan, and Walt Cunningham. Too bad he's not here.
I know,
He likes to
Walt
sit
was
on
one of my
engines.
first customers.
Oh, there you go. I've got a lot of people that upgrade their engines, but where do they drive?
So yeah, that's a great question. So there's a drag strip over in Baytown. It's the Houston Raceway Park, powered by Pennzoil. And then there's Circuit of the Americas up in Austin. They have public events up there. Yeah, so they're definitely there's the Texas Mile down in Victoria that they run October and in March, where you can run as fast as you can go in 1 mile. And a guy that works for us was the first guy to break 300 miles an hour in 1 mile. Yeah, so Texas is really, it's known among car people as like kind of one of the fast streetcar capitals of the world. There's an event in the spring called TX2K, and they'll have 50,000 people go out to the track in Baytown with all kinds of fast streetcars. So it's really, there's a lot of opportunities to go fast where you don't have to, risk getting a ticket on the freeway, which I don't recommend, unless you leave this guy over here. Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
for coming out today. I really enjoyed your story, especially the part about just having that passion so young and that you eventually followed that. I think that's a story that we need to be telling people. And so thank you for sharing that. But I want to know, what is the distance covered when you did the 270 miles an hour?
So we accelerated, I think we started like at 20 miles an hour, and we were under power for 2.4 miles. The runway from end to end, from where the grass turns into asphalt and the asphalt turns into grass, 3.2 total, and we ran for about 2.4 miles, and we had about 0.8 of a mile to slow down. So the big question is, when we go out with the Venom M5, where are we going to run? I don't know that NAS is long enough for us to go out and go 312. But the folks at TxDOT, they've expressed some interest in helping us find a new highway. I flew back from the West Coast not too long ago, and I looked down and I saw this nice long straight road. I went, what the heck is that? I think they're extending 249 from Tomball up to like 105. I'm like, yeah. I need to find out when the timing of that is. Yes, sir.
John, just out of curiosity, on the first video, I think that was the Grand Parkway. What was the button you were holding in your left hand?
Well, pretty close. No, you're not too far off. So when we built that car, we had like 2 weeks to repair, and when that generation Corvette came out, it was all new to us, and there wasn't really any superchargers, turbo systems. We'd only had that car for a few weeks. So we knew some basic modifications that we could do. We got like another 100 horsepower out of it, but I'm like, we got to go 200. And so I told my guys, I said, put some nitrous oxide on it. So nitrous oxide is basically just oxygen in a bottle that you feed into the motor. And if you have the right amount of fuel, it makes a lot of power. So I told him, just put my little nitrous on a button. And so when I got up in 5th gear, I hit the button, and I had a big, like, 15-pound tank of nitrous in the back. And like literally when I went through the toll tag plaza, I ran out of nitrous, and 200.6 was all I would do. I'm like, okay, mission accomplished. Yeah, great question. Anybody else?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
What's your daily driver?
Well, that's a great question. I have 2 daily drivers. My current daily driver is a 2019 Ford F-350 dually truck that is actually currently stock. I can't believe it's stock. I haven't modified it, but I've also got a Jeep Trackhawk, which has 1,000 horsepower, but unfortunately, my son-in-law had to rescue my daughter, who was stuck in a gas station in a big storm from 3 or 4 months ago, and it got flooded. So I don't know. We've tried to resurrect it, but I think I'm gonna have to call my insurance guy and say, no, it's no bueno. So those are the 2 daily drivers.
Appreciate it.
Great question.
John, what's the kind of the cost entry level to have our cars brought up to speed like that?
Yeah, so he asked what's kind of the entry-level cost to modify cars. Look, there's a lot of companies all over the country that modify cars. We specialize in the vehicles that we specialize in. I thought about doing kind of like a slideshow for you guys, but I thought you can go to our website, which is hennessyperformance.com, or Hennessy Performance on Instagram. We have 1.1 million Instagram followers. My daughter Emma and Sam from our video team, they do a great job on that stuff. But I'd say our average customer, this is what my accountant tells me, spends about $27,000. Our entry-level upgrades are probably in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. So gosh, it's not inexpensive, but we warranty what we do. We've been doing it a long time. I think we have good resale value on our product. And I'm not trying to pitch you guys, but I'm just trying to give you some perspective in terms of there's ways to modify cars where you can buy parts and go to the guy down the street, but sometimes you don't always get what you're expecting when you go that route. So we try to offer a turnkey solution for our clients, and we try to build our vehicles as if they could have come from the factory that way. So that's what we do. Stay busy. We build about 500 cars a year.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my friend.
Just for